There is about to be a political earthquake in Wales. In every election since the Welsh Parliament was created in 1999, Labour has been the largest party in the Senedd, and the nation has had a Labour First Minister. But the dominance goes even further back. In UK-wide elections, Labour has sent the most Welsh MPs to Westminster since 1922, so over a century. And that's all about to change. According to the latest MRP poll from YouGov, Labour will drop from 44 seats to 12 in May's Senedd elections. The big winners will be Reform, who would go from 0 seats to 30, and Plaid Cymru, who would become the largest party with 43 seats. That means Plaid's leader, Rhun Iorwerth, is favourite to be the Welsh First Minister after May. He joined me and Aaron Bastani in the studio earlier today, and I asked him whether he was ready for that job.
The key thing, I think, is that there's been real consistency in the polls going back probably a year and a half or a little bit more now, and it tells a very consistent story. Plaid Cymru ahead in many of them, but Reform not that far behind, and it's that two-horse race, which I think is really gelling in people's minds now. It's the choice of two very, very different futures for Wales. Are we ready? Yeah, I mean, we are putting an awful lot of work into trying to win the election, but we have put an awful lot of work into making sure that we're ready to hit the ground running as well if the people of Wales put their trust in us.
And how would the sequencing work? So if you look at the SNP, they're the largest party in the mid-2000s. Yep. They then win a majority. They then have a referendum. Is that kind of how you guys see the pathway to a referendum for autonomy or independence for Wales panning out?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the main thing I think that I want to see happening in this election is for that historic change to happen. And it is massively significant. Well, Labour's been winning elections for 100 years. They have done well over a century and more. But at some point, we need that break from the political monotony and lack of political renewal that comes from that. And that is the opportunity. Now, yes, I have a vision for the future of Wales. It's about building confidence right now, dealing with the things, with the powers that we have right now. But I do want to, persuade the people of Wales, hopefully, to be more confident about what we can achieve. The timescale for what happens with that, I genuinely think it's in the hands of the people of Wales. I'll do what I can to guide them. I certainly don't believe this is as good as things get for Wales, but I need to persuade the people of Wales of that as well.
Are you less ambitious than the SNP then? Because it sounds to me like you want to be better administrators at the Senedd than the Labour Party, rather than actually offering a certain kind of national project in the same way that Alex Salmond wanted to.
I described it this week in launching our campaign as a mission. That this is a mission to transform Wales. That we can be better than this. The United Kingdom, it doesn't work for Wales as it is, and I have ambition unbounded in what we can achieve as a nation. But I'm also a pragmatic politician that I can't impose independence or anything on Wales. I have to persuade the people of Wales, and it's that passion that I will show, that the SNP showed in Scotland and continue to do so, that will hopefully make people confident in coming with us. But there's the reality of politics and the here and now, and things that we need to deal with on health and jobs and inequalities and poverty that we need to crack on with and show people, these Plaid Cymru guys, they know what they're doing. We'll trust them, and hopefully that trust can grow. But first of all, we've got to do it in this election.
I suppose, there'll be viewers from Wales. We'll ask you about sort of Welsh politics in one moment, but just sticking to this question of independence. So I was looking at, the dates when it came to the SNP. So they become the largest party in 2007.
Yeah.
In 2011, they win a majority. The referendum is in 2014, so it's all quite quick. You're about to become, if we believe the polls, the largest party. So if there's the same sequence, we could have an independence referendum in Wales by 2033. Is that something you see as plausible, or are you on a different track?
Of course it's plausible if we can persuade the people of Wales that is what they want to do. And what the SNP did in 2007 was to say that we will, from 2011, make the case to have the right to have a referendum. Because as it stands, we don't have that right. I mean, so unequal is this United Kingdom that we don't even have the powers to call a vote on our own future. Now, we make that case. We make the case for why we think that should happen. We make the case for the benefits that would come from that. we be honest about the challenges that come with that, so that the people of Wales hopefully will come with us. And goodness me, there's been a massive change in the last few years in the number of people who not only have said we are really confident in our ability to become an independent nation now, but more importantly, the people who are curious about it and say, we'd like it, not entirely convinced yet, so convince us. And I think that has been a massively significant shift in the past few years, and we've got a bit of work to do again. And I say this, independence means different things to different people as well, so we have to show what it is and what it isn't. I'm not an isolationist. I've no interest whatsoever in Wales closing itself away from the world. It's redesigning the relationship between the nations in these islands so we can work better together, all of us,
And has devolution worked for Wales up to this point? I mean, there's a democratic argument for it, obviously, but there are lots of areas of very significant social policy where the outcomes seem worse. So sort of education and health being the most obvious examples, where Wales is underperforming England, even though the funding is the same. So, I mean, what's going on there? Presumably that's not going to give Welsh people lots of confidence in independence.
I mean, devolution in itself is a principle that decisions should be taken, I believe, as close to the people that those decisions affect. And I believe in that Wales is a nation, and that the normal state of a nation is to be able to design and influence its own future. But you're right, it has to also then be a means to do things and to do things better. Do I believe Welsh Government, using the tools that we currently have through devolution, have been making best use of those tools? Well, no. I'm a leader of a party that has been in opposition for all of that 27 years, apart from as a junior party in government nearly 20 years ago, now in a coalition. I don't think government has made the best of what it has got at its disposal, and we're putting a programme for government to try to do things better.
What's your analysis of what went wrong on a policy perspective? And I suppose especially I'm thinking of education, where Wales has gone down sort of in the PISA rankings. It is really underperforming England, especially when it comes to the least privileged children. And I suppose I want to know, what's your critique? What did the Labour administration in Wales get wrong, and what would you do differently?
On education, I think more than anything, it took its eye off the ball. We have a hugely proud record in education in Wales, one of the first nations in the world to have a generally literate population. We were ahead of the game many, many years ago, and we've let slip. And much of that, I think, has been in government not focusing on what needs to be doing. And going into this election, we want to strip it back to those basics of numeracy and literacy, preparing our young people to have those basic things that they need to flourish in life. But we can look at a host of other areas as well. On health, for example, the lack of regeneration of ideas is one of the big problems that we have. A government that is in power so long becomes risk averse, I think. You need new energy, new ideas coming in every now and then, with that sort of rhythm of politics that allows you to change direction. And one of the principles that we're putting in place in trying to govern in a different way is to put what we call a test and learn model in place, where we try things, and if they don't work, we change direction. And what we see all too often is a stagnation in the delivery. Well, only in those terms we need that change in this election, but it comes from ideas as well.
And the argument that's often made, I think the Institute for Fiscal Studies said this about the Welsh education system, is that they sort of tried to move away from testing because sort of they thought they wanted a more comfortable, I suppose, education system, and the IFS thinks it's backfired. So would you sort of be reintroducing more testing, more targets into the system?
I think what we do need to be willing to do is to do what we feel is right for education, and moving away from any testing or any way of measuring progress clearly doesn't work. And I'm not interested in league tables of schools. I don't think that works. But do we need better ways of measuring progress? Absolutely we do. And progress for the child as well as progress for a school, for example.
And on devolution, if you look at Cardiff, you look at that part of the UK, very densely populated part of the world, you can imagine a very big, larger metropolitan area.
Yeah.
There's an argument that is actually, well, you'd have much more effective government for Cardiff and the environs around it if it had a metro mayor. rather than this national administration, which has to cover actually very different parts of Wales, North Wales, which is very different to the needs of Cardiff. That debate around metro mayors is obviously on steroids in this country because we've just created a bunch of them in England. What do you think about that critique of devolution in Wales, but also Scotland, where you didn't have the metro mayors, you couldn't have the kinds of urban renewal, which increasingly we associate with places like Manchester?
Yeah, and it's been very impressive what has been done in those areas, and it's very, very important that we have effective structures in Wales's urban areas. When you look at the Cardiff Capital Region organisation working alongside a Cardiff Council, there is a lot that they can do in terms of local administration. But one of the things I think that works well for Wales, potentially, is our scale. And yes, it would be a scale that is made up of a mix of urban and rural, but we are of a size where you can make things work across sort of all of our geographic area. We're a population of around 3 million people. It's the kind of size of population where you can find a way of doing things and making sure you replicate that right across the health system or the education system. And I don't think the fact that it's a mix of urban and rural in itself should hold us back. Leadership can come in many forms, and I want a Plaid Cymru government that if I were to be the First Minister leading it, to have a really good proactive relationship with those more local areas, including Cardiff Council.
Who would your favoured allies be? I mean, right now, if the MRP poll from YouGov, I think it is to be believed, it's suggesting that you and Labour would be the combination with the most members of the Senedd, and then it would be you and the Greens, both plausibly could be a majority. Who would be the preferred candidate?
Yeah, and one, I believe in cooperation. Cooperation is really important. I think people expect it. We have a system that has never delivered a majority government, and that we've changed it for this election, and again, the expectation is that there won't be a majority government. But that's normal when you look across so many European countries. I think with devolution still being relatively young, 27 years old, people aren't quite maybe still in that place where they accept, no, there has to be cooperation. And the right in politics will accuse us of having propped up Labour over the years. Well, it's not propping, it's using influence. What I want to have is a situation where ideally we run a minority government, but that other parties feel able to influence us, and where we reach out to them and say, okay, where is the common ground between us? What can we work on in terms of legislation, in terms of budgets? What is it that we agree on, and that by bringing our forces together, we can be greater than the sum of the parts, and we'll look across a number of parties and see, okay, let's do this, and bring stability to the people of Wales in that way. But with others able to contribute their ideas and, crucially, votes.
And I think late last year you said, in New York it's Mamdani, in Wales it's Plaid. So are you the Welsh Mamdani, and why?
I made it explicit in that election, in that interview, that I didn't say I was a Welsh version of Mamdani, because that's not the point. The point is that I felt energised from Wales looking at what was happening in New York. And a lot of people currently are looking for that kind of hope, because that's what Mamdani stood for. He stood for hope, a different way of doing things, a self-belief in what collectively we can do. We saw it in the by-election in Caerphilly in Wales, where people said, you know what, we believe in what Plaid Cymru stand for in this election and their vision. We also want to keep out the far right, because that is not hope, that's division. We want that hope. And I think Plaid Cymru very much carries that mantle in Welsh politics currently, and surely like-minded people, whether we're in New York or Newborough in my constituency, that sense of, let's learn from each other and Newport, take energy presumably from each other. I could have lots of news. We have several Newports. Yeah. I went for one in my own patch.